This is Talking in Stations, Season 2, Episode 18. The season is coming to an end. Oddly enough, this one went by very quickly. And close to rounding out this season, I, of course, am Artemis Albosa, a member of Pandemic Horde. Joining me today, as always, we have Ron USMC, a member of Test Alliance. Please ignore.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We also have Silver Suspiria, a member of Federation Uprising.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
And good night. Well, I guess that's the end of the show, right? Okay, fair enough.
Getting all Walter Cronkite on us.
A special guest for us tonight, we have Burntime Vril, a member of Valkyrie Alliance.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
Been kind enough to stay up late for us from the EUTZ side of the world, so we very much appreciate that. Later on in today's show, we'll be joined by Fonsui from Signal Cartel, a member of Eve Scout Enclave, but he'll be here a little bit later on. And to start out the show, I want to speak with Burntime, because he's on the show for a couple of reasons, one of which is we covered 2 weeks back in episode that would have been 12, the fighting that had happened in Scalding Pass between the Cure, who were members, or who were sort of an independent organization that were living in Scalding Pass for around about a year. They were a small group, but they had two contingents. They had an EUTZ contingent and a USTZ contingent. And we had a member of the USTZ contingent on to talk about the fighting that was happening, but Burntime is actually a member of the EUTZ contingent, and so he is here to sort of fill in the holes on really the massive amount of fighting and other sort of conflict that happened in this area of Scalding Pass during that period of time, and then sort of work our way from history up until where we are today. So, Burntime, looking back to when you guys lived in Scalding Pass, what did the conflict between your group and Fraternity look like in the European time zone?
Well, first of all, I need to correct you here. Cure Coalition was formed back in the days when Ebola basically wanted to evict everybody out of Great Wildlands and in turn also out of Scalding Pass, where we already had a foothold. After that, when the certain parties moved down into Scalding Pass, we actually became the LBC Coalition. Whiskey at the time when we were fighting Ebola was not really part of the Cure, whereas the Cans guys, Capitalist Army, were. And when we moved down to Scalding, it basically ended up being Whiskey joining our side, and the Cans guys weren't around that much until pretty much the end when the real fighting started. Then they became involved with us again.
Right on. So starting from now, an accurate portrayal of the parties involved, what did the fighting actually look like from your perspective?
Well, it was fairly nuts. Obviously, you flew with us with the Capitalist Army guys when we were fighting Ebola back in the day. Once that whole war was over and we essentially took control of the Scalding Pass pocket, the R&M pocket, there was a reprieve, about, I think, 3 months of sheer boredom, I'd like to call it. We did entertain ourselves by essentially going and flying around in, going up to Pandemic Horde, going over to Brave, going to Razor, going to Test, and literally, 30 jumps each direction to try and get some content. Also over to Frat and Detroit, but those guys never undocked. So, yeah, just looking for content essentially. And then somewhere along the line, when we came back from a Pandemic Horde sortie, going and roaming up there, we got bushwhacked by the guys from Scourge. Didn't end too well for them, oddly enough. Back then, Chutney was still with us, and he was FCing that fleet. And then Scourge kind of got onto our radar, or we got on theirs, and they decided, they're going to start hitting us for content.
Right on. And how did that go?
Well, went fairly interesting. Scourge itself had various elements. So they had one group which kind of specialized in, coming with kind of the Triglavian fleets. Small number of guys. I mean, fleet sizes of 15 to 20. and they'd come down into our pocket. They'd either ref a structure or hit self, but it wasn't really for anything other than content, because they knew we'd form up for a timer where we weren't maybe ready on the day when they came. We had a few people, but then obviously by the time the timer came out, we'd be ready for them and we'd have a fight each time. Never stayed docked, so it was great. Won a few, lost a few, but it was good and was nice to basically face the Triglavian ships on the field and actually be able to do something against them.
Indeed, I was a member of a number of those fleets, and it was quite fun fighting Scourge. I remember whelping some fleets, but also winning some fights, so that was good. But eventually, Scourge sort of, I don't want to say fail-skated, their CEO decided he didn't want to run the Alliance anymore, and so they sort of merged down, and a lot of their pilots joined Skill Yourself, and then all of their SOV became hotly contested and was eventually scooped up by Fraternity and their allies. And then Fraternity turned their sights on the R&M pocket. So how was it fighting Fraternity and their renters or allies or what have you in that pocket for what was your home for a year?
Well, firstly, Scourge essentially, which started off with just basic content against us, actually turned into kind of an eviction campaign. They were hired by a group called Dragon Empire to evict us. Dragon Empire actually came down to try and kick us out, but yeah, they didn't get anywhere. We destroyed the entire fleet on numerous occasions. And then they basically got Scourge to come back them up. Scourge then also offered us to pay them rent. We told them no. And then they said, well, then these guys will get it. But they didn't really get anywhere. And then they also got tied into a fight with Skill Yourself over in Imencia and Tenerifis, which is the point where we got approached by Legacy as well as XIX or Fire Coalition, as they call themselves now, to put pressure on Scourge in Great Wildlands as well as Scalding Pass, which we did. So before Scourge actually fell apart, we were riffing all this off. We were killing their structures, hitting their structures, having fights with them all over the show, which I think led to some aggravation within the leadership of Scourge. And we had spies in there, so we know. And basically generated part of the fallout that essentially caused them to rift and fall apart. Then in turn, what happened is with us taking over the SOV, an agreement, kind of a gentleman's agreement. Basically, when we took the pocket initially from Ebola, we had some of the stuff already, but then Ebola was contesting it against us. Fraternity was always asking us what are our intentions, and we told them, look, we're here for content, we're not bluing anyone, and this is the way the cookie crumbles. We want fun in this game, and Scalding Pass is the place to be. It's not like some sort of renter empire. It's not controlled by anyone. So it's a kind of one of the very few regions of Nulsov that is still kind of independent, although I hate the word independent. But yeah, so we were always asked, where do you stand in this? Where do you stand? We said, look, you guys, nobody assisted us in, taking the SOV. So now that we're here, we're not getting involved in any side. The only thing I did say to Fraternity is that BSOD did assist us against Ebola when Ebola called in all their friends, Hell's Legion and Purple Helmeted Warriors and all those guys. We had BSOD come and assist us from time to time. So we owed them. And Fraternity essentially declared an eviction campaign against them. And we showed up for BSOD, generally against the odds because Frat was also throwing their 300-man fleets around. But we still won most of the fights and completed objectives. So it was good. But that obviously put us onto Frat's radar. We got contacted numerous times by various different diplomats, which is another problem in Fraternity. You don't know if these guys actually talk to each other because every day there's some guy coming with a different story and he doesn't know what the previous diplo spoken to us about. And yeah, it was really getting nowhere from, it's fine, you just carry on doing what you do, or, if you don't stop, we will annihilate you, or join us or die. These were the kind of options.
were you like, was there someone who was translating? Were you struggling with like Google Translate or something, or do they have like a proper English as a first language or second language person that you were talking to? Because we
There
are
was
speaking like your group
was
is English speaking, but you also have a Russian speaking contingent. Bright Side of Death is Russian mainly, if I understand correctly, and then Fraternity speaks their language. So this is quite the interesting diplomatic situation.
Yeah, so obviously in our coalition we got Germans, we got Russians, we got American English, we've got three languages. The one we don't have is Chinese, but the people we were in contact with, Chinese ones being Noraus or Wind Spirits, that would obviously all go over text, not really over any sort of voice communication. But fraternity's also got plenty of guys. I think they're called the Black Crows or something like that. Ezekiel and some of the other guys there that talk on behalf of Frat, US time zone. So there's some English there. But yeah, essentially what brought the attention of Frat on us was us taking the sub of Scourge. That's where fraternity turned around and basically told us, look, you are getting too close to our space. And they didn't like that. The fact that Scourge was attacking us the whole time and we took that sub fair and square didn't seem to interest them too much, nor the fact that we had no real intention of going over there to, take their sub, which, look at us. We're a tiny little group. We throw together 50, 60 guys with capitals. Okay, fine. Then we can double it up, using alts. But yeah, it just, there was no reason for us to do it. However, coming in there and getting content, like tackling a Rourke or Ratters and stuff like that, that was fair game. But we didn't intend, or nor had we at any point hit any of their structures or reft their sub.
Well, you had been fairly successful at putting significant pressure on Scourge and their allies with repping their Sov, repping their citadels. Considering that that was on behest, and perhaps Fraternity knew this, of Legacy Coalition, there could have been a very real threat in the back of their mind that with this looming war, the end of the non-invasion pact between Legacy and Legacy would ask you guys to once again put pressure on this northern front of Fraternity and force them to shift their attention away from the main threat down in the Detroit area and have them split their forces up to this northern front. So you could have been a very real threat and a thorn in their side, so to speak.
Well, the funny thing is, what passed by more or less around the same time is that we have suspicion that Fraternity was actually paying the guys from Scourge and Skill Yourself to sit on our face, because there was literally nothing we could do with caps anymore at one stage. Skill Yourself would escalate with like 50 supers. Fraternity would escalate with capitals, and there was just nothing we could do anymore. We were stuck with subcap fleets, literally. And we had a very good fight in, was it 1V or was it M9? One of the two systems. A great fight. We were completely outnumbered. It was about 70 of us versus 210 of them. That was literally triggered, toilet paper, quota lines, Fraternity, and basically we rolled in there with a fleet to defend a forward staging structure, which we put there for content, so we could hit all the the little groups around there, and essentially won the fight, only to then get dropped by Skill Yourself with 50 supers and blow us all to pieces. And that's kind of the point where we realized, well, okay, capital game is definitely not a go here anymore.
And Silver has a lot of experience in the kind of the capital and the escalation game, and just not being able to have the numbers to compete with that, because there's always those groups, right? That just want that easy win, and for them it's very easy, right? And that happened to us, right? It's the supers are the I win button. So Silver, does this sound very familiar to Fed Up's story?
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens to a lot of medium to small size groups. you fight hard enough and you start getting yourself some attention, and then somebody who has super superiority over you will waltz in and just sit on your face as you described it, because that's how it feels like, a big walrus sitting on your chest. And there's really not a whole lot you can do about it. You can make their life miserable for a little while, but eventually they just wind up sort of shoving you out. And it is very frustrating to not be able to escalate to caps. It drains on your user base a little bit, because everyone likes to use their toys, and when they're used to being able to drop their carrier, and then you tell them, well, we can't do that anymore, guys. They'll just drop like 50 nixes on us, and what are we going to do? It's a tough situation to be in for sure.
Yeah, it sure was. I mean, we had a couple of fights where we escalated with capitals, where they threw a number, then we threw our number, then they escalated again, we counter-escalated, and then, we heard Skill Yourself is busy forming up in CTEC-J, and it was like, okay, let's get the hell out of here quick. So, it's like you said, it's frustrating. And, I wouldn't say the member base was too concerned from the fact that they couldn't use caps, but we were definitely missing the hammer. The follow-up of this is essentially fraternity realized they don't have anybody who can really pose a threat to us in scalding. They couldn't get rid of us. Everything that was tried didn't really work out. They paid, like I said, Skill Yourself and some other groups to try and discourage us and get us out, but we stayed. And then essentially they put in a French group, which is funny because it's the same guys that used to be part in French Connection, and Skill Yourself actually deployed to their area to evict them, and they just packed up and left. They didn't give Skill Yourself any fight. And a splinter group of that group essentially, by the sounds of it, became not a renter, but a group that was allowed to live in flat space. They basically threw over the TCUs for them, let them sit in the pocket, but I think the agreement was that they must hit us 24/7, which they did very well. I got to give
Which
them
group was
credit.
this?
This was Toilet Paper, relatively new alliance. They formed from French Connection.
Oh, that's interesting. I was wondering what happened to those guys. Okay.
So they essentially kept hitting us. When they moved in, we thought, oh, cool, new group, let's have some fun. And we had some good fights, with caps and stuff like that. Escalating to caps, bait raids and stuff like that. It was good. But then they started hitting us off, and we inquired, is this like genuine sub attack, or is this for fun? No, this is just for content. But later obviously found out, nope, this is an attempt at hostile takeover. The thing is, they didn't get anywhere. They were hitting us sometimes 8 CTAs a day, but they couldn't ever win a timer. And the problem we had is that when we try to counter strike, because normally you soak it up a little bit, see what the enemy is capable of, and then you say, right, now they're not as aggressive anymore. They're starting to cool down. Maybe they're not getting enough out of this. They're not getting anywhere. So now it's time for the counter attack. So we went over there. We tried to hit their sub. We tried to hit some structures, but immediately it became very evident that all their stuff was time zone tanked for fraternity. And by the time we rocked up to do a armor timer, you had a 300, 400 man frat fleet on standby. And there was literally nothing we can do. And that was like one of the most frustrating parts.
Been there myself too. Go over and hit a group that's similar size to you, think it's going to be a good fight. Oh, wait, they're friends with French Horde. Oh, man. Been there.
Yeah.
French Horde? What?
Yeah, you remember the French Horde that used to live in Cloud Ring?
No.
Like
is this an actual group, or are they like, is that their name? Were they called something?
Well, they're a pandemic horde, but they were the French Horde.
Oh.
They lived over like on the southern part of Pureblind and Cloud Ring. A year and 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. So they didn't live in Fade with the rest of Horde. They lived in Cloud Ring. Right next to a group that when we first went into Cloud Ring, wanted to take their space, but their solve was timed for French Horde time, and we'd have to fight French Horde.
Ah, I see. Anyway, with that tangent aside, so we were talking about you were trying to go on the aggressive burn time, but their structures were time zone tanked to the point where they could essentially bring in their allies. So they put it to where a defender should, right? Where they had the ability to bring the fight to you and defend their structure. And you couldn't continue to go on the aggressive. What happened after that?
Well, yeah, like I said, being French, also being in EU time zone, their strongest time zone was the same as ours. But instead of obviously giving us the times to contend, 1800, 1900, like ours were, they basically set all their stuff up for fraternity time zone, around downtime or before. And essentially what happened then is they kept coming, they got re-inspired. Maybe the masters told them put the pressure on some more again. Not sure. Um, they changed their doctrines as well. They flew very kitey stuff, kind of trying to avoid a fight when they could do stuff at range. We basically went over to the Swiss Army knife on Stepper's recommendation, the Cerberus, which allowed us to just do a missile change in order to contest versus smaller stuff or bigger stuff, which was great on the fly. But then, yeah, essentially they they again didn't get anywhere. They had fraternity and Scale Yourself come and ref forts of ours, where we would have the XIX guys as well as Test and Legacy come and show. Thank you very much for that. One of the things we pride ourselves with is we tried not to bat phone too much. Obviously, it's kind of tricky because you don't know when is Skill Yourself coming, when is Frat coming, because our enemies have constantly been bat phoning them. But I didn't want to waste anybody's time, to be honest. And when it came to an armor timer on a fort or a final timer on a fort, we knew there was most likely going to be, the guys that actually came and refed it, because toilet paper couldn't ref our structures. It always had to be either skill or fraternity. So then we got assisted. Thing is, they never, even fraternity or skill itself, didn't manage to turn it over. Test and XIX and Legacy friends were, too strong, too numerous in our system to basically hold it. And then essentially what happened, what killed it, was one morning in US time zone, Eli Knight walked in there with a crap ton of Munins and basically flipped the solve and turned R&M, which was our entrance, into essentially fraternity sovereignty, or the iHub down. And with that iHub broken, the security index down, no ability to put a Sinojammer down anymore, because it takes 3 months, 2 or 3 months
Like
to get.
35 days, I
Yeah.
think, to get to level 3.
Yeah, 1 month
Yeah, so it
for
was just
Sinojammer. But
it was essentially a lost cause. We also had noticed, we obviously took note of Test fighting fraternity, and Fire Coalition being formed and also fighting fraternity, and both sides not really getting anywhere. And in the beginning, we saw a little bit of a reduction of fraternity assisting, the local enemies, quota lines, toilet paper, literally triggered. Who am I missing? Kanoko, honorable mention. And they were kind of left on their own, which kind of discouraged them, because you could see they reduced the amount of aggression they had against us. So we could actually get a little bit out of our pocket and start hitting quota lines, for example, which were in our time zone and actually had their structures in our time zone too. But other than that, fraternity then started spicing things up again. I think Test and XIX took a break. I'm not sure. I've heard talks that there was apparently some peace talks going on or something. But then obviously we became the focus point, because I think fraternity realized these guys are not friends of ours. They are hostile, and they're impacting the renters or ratters or whatever friends of fraternities are living in Scalding Pass, and that shall not be. And then we noticed, obviously, the influx of fraternity fleets coming our way, supporting their locals, which is great, I guess, if you are one of the locals under the frat banner. So they did their job there, but obviously for us, not so great on the losing side.
So you're down, but you're not out. You lost all your Sov, and you're still playing the game. So after the Sov was lost, after Fraternity came through, finally decided you've been a thorn in our side for long enough, and forced you out. They had Eli Knight come in and take your Sov. What did you guys do then?
Essentially, when Fraternity came in and rolled over R and M hub, that was it. Like literally right there and then we said, right, done. This is it. We cannot hold this any longer. We can sit here, we can grind against toilet paper and just do one CTA after the other for no gain because we're not going to get anywhere here. So let's just pack up and leave. And that's what we did. We literally called an evac the same day. Same as Whiskey, as Iniquitous, who was on your show the last time, told you. We literally started pulling stuff out, getting everything out safe. And then, yeah, toilet paper guys came in, they read stuff as usual. And then we didn't even bother contesting anymore. And they were like, hey, what's going on? We're like, well, can't fight that. And that was it.
So where have you moved on to now?
Well, we're obviously still living in Great Wildlands, but other than that, we decide, look, we're going to carry on the fight. The thing we got a lot of history with Fraternity. We were evicted from Wicked Creek twice by them already. Back in when I joined Inc., we essentially got booted out by Triumvirate and Fraternity together. Prior to that, I was in Manifesto. We also got evicted by Tri and Fraternity in the same place. And yeah, now same thing again. So, you know,
So you're saying that you would make a really good legacy ally, and you should come out in for the big win.
Well, yeah, you see, the thing is, Mugila, the leader of Vitsi, who's now also the leader of Valkyrie Alliance, our leader, he's essentially been good friends with, the Russians. And throughout the whole time, we'd already been talking to Kira and obviously also with the test guys. So I honestly don't care whose fleet I'm on as long as it's against Fraternity. This is me personal. I don't speak for all my guys, but generally the guys like to fight. And the problem is there is just nothing to fight because wherever you are in the closest vicinity, everything ends up in a blob. So you might as well go and join one of these groups in achieving the objective. And in the long run, I hope once this is all blown over, that maybe Scalding will be a habitable place again for smaller groups like us to actually have contents and, with little groups that are living in there currently.
So the big fish that you chose to join arms with was Fire Coalition, yeah?
Well, Fire Coalition and Legacy. I don't have a preference between the two. It's just that with the Russian speakers, it's very tricky. Um, it's easier for them to be on the Fire Coalition side. However, they will fly with the Legacy side, and we have on numerous times. There's been numerous times that I've gone down and flown with Onseto's fleets or some of the other TCFCs, or even with the guys from Evictus or the guys from Warped Intentions. Yeah, I think I've flown with, Fed Up guys have been in part of Deck Lady's fleets. Big shout out to him too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think either way you go, wherever you're comfortable with, it's a pretty open community between Fire and Legacy and all of the alliances within the Legacy and Fire. We all fly together here and there. We're all our fleets are open to everyone. So I like that there's a strata of content. There's some guys going out in Goku fleets, and you can go do that. There are guys doing Harpies and Eagles and I like that open atmosphere, especially being a small group, because I can pick and choose a little bit what content suits my guys and which time zone, and there's a big menu of things to do.
Speaking
Oh,
of
no,
which, what sort of
absolutely.
things have you guys been doing? Because the South we've been talking about it recently. So when the non-invasion pact between Fraternity and Winter Coalition ended, people were expecting fireworks to go off, and it sort of fizzled for a bit. Sino Jammers have been the main sort of scapegoat, if you will, that has been called out for the reason that conflict has been slow to boil over. But it has been heating up and heating up and heating up as skirmish fleets happen. Elo Knight brought Origin Dot into Fraternity, and so now there's a USTZ contingent to Winter Coalition, which they have been using to fight with Federation Uprising, and there's been just a lot of skirmish fighting happening back and forth. That's what we've discussed so far. Last week we had a couple of Fortizar battles that we talked about where Legacy and Winterco were both dropping staging and content citadels in each other's Sov and fighting over it just to see who could get a beachhead in, who could get some sort of strategic positional advantage to begin to push their momentum forward. So that's where we ended off. What are we doing now?
So basically, what you just said is the current situation, which is a lot of content, citadels dropping. And, one of the things, that Burntime was talking about, and you actually alluded to, Artemis, was, a strategy around making a choice, right? So, as we push north, uh, they we set several timers, right? And they're all at the same time. And then we leave it up to them. You make a choice on which ones you want to defend or which ones you want to attack, because you can't do them all, right? You can do some of them, and you might even win some, but you won't win them all. So it comes down to choices. So if you drop 10 structures in 10 different systems, then okay, well, which ones? And then we can respond to that. Now, some of those are going to anchor. And, the key, because this is all, because of those damn Sino jammers, man. Like they are such, when that nip ended, I honestly felt like we were like running straight and we just like hit a concrete wall and like, oh, okay, cool. So so now we have to deal with this wall situation. So a- as we keep dropping, and I think they've killed, maybe half or so. But one of the things that they've been doing is, fraternity's been bat phoning a lot. So I always kind of joke, that the battle reports look like the all-star team, right? Because it's like Pandemic Legion, NC, Fraternity, Skill U, like all these, very well-known alliances, on these battle reports. So they've been great. And one of the things, like Silver is right there on the front edge, is dropping these structures, all at the same time, and then watching the timers and using those to kind of creep into the Sov, right? So, because remember, like every Fortizar can hold dreads, and that creates a circle around a Fortizar that this is within dread range, right? So every Fortizar that we successfully anchor is a possible dread bomb. Some work, some don't, but we're going to keep dropping them until it ends. And I think that's where I don't know if you guys have been involved with that or.
Yeah, we were. There are some XIX forts anchored as well. I think in total with Legacy and Fire Coalition, I think 5 out of 7 got anchored, or 5 out of 8 got anchored. 3 got destroyed, I believe.
Yeah,
Along with about another 50 or 60 smaller structures, Astra houses and Raytaris. I was on quite a few fleets originally defending the anchoring and then the final anchoring timer. And we obviously, like Ron just said, we focused on covering certain ones, knowing that the enemy can't be at all of them, and let them have one while we cover the other 3, kind of idea.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
would
picture it
love
like
to
World
talk
War
to.
One.
I would love to talk to whatever industrialist is making bank off of all of these citadels you guys are dropping and then proceeding to just destroy day after day after day. Sorry, continue. So
I
The
was
money.
say there's like a no man's land like set up. Like you can Like if you pull up the regular map, you could pretty much draw a line from like IIS down to 7-7, and there's that. It's just a gap where we're just shooting at each other and trying to make headway past the no man's land, which has been the challenge. Yeah, so like go into see 620 and the turret up there in the top left corner. Not my space, but up. Yeah, click that. So right there, 620. That pipe up there has been a hotbed of activity. That's where a lot of stuff gets dropped. A lot of skirmishes happen. We did happen to get an Astra right on grid with the Keepstar and O3 tac there, which is where the main staging for Frat is, and that's been a lot of fun. I think for both groups to just sit around and shoot at each other on the Anseblex gate that's in between the two structures. But yeah, it's really just us pushing each other back and forth. You know, I think maybe our side's inched in a little bit further than theirs, but it really has been inching. You know, it's a tough fight, but it's been a lot of fun. I think for both sides.
Oh, definitely. I think the main profiteers are whoever's building Eagles.
Yeah, Eagles
And Munins.
and Munins.
Whoever's got those BPCs, they're rocking it.
And all the assorted guns and parts that go on them.
How is the like capital and super capital escalation going? Because you mentioned you've been stonewalled, so to speak, by the Sino Jammers. Is Fraternity utilizing their defender's advantage to hit you with the capital umbrella that they've got, or is it mostly just subcap on subcap?
They really have it, Ron. Like, yeah, we push in with subcaps, and you think they would, drop caps on us, but they don't. I really feel like there's a little bit of mutual assured destruction thing going on, right? If you commit, something could fire off, and it's sort of like a little bit of hesitation. But on the other hand, I think people are enjoying the subcap brawling, that's been going on constantly all day in all time zones. I mean, I haven't been able to take part in something like that in a long time, where we could just get in a fleet of 40 and it'd be a 40 on 40 Munins versus Eagles, and sometimes we win, and sometimes Elo houses us, right? So, no, I haven't seen them use that too much.
I have seen a lot of frat dreads. They have a lot of dreads, and I've seen those drop, and those have actually, there's a couple of times that they've wiped, some caps. But, what's interesting about like the one that I'm thinking about was they only dropped the dreads after we had won the timer, and it was like half the fleet had left, and it was a brilliant move on their part. But you almost think that with that firepower they could have maybe changed it in the beginning. But regardless, like it was a brilliant move on theirs. They trapped a bunch of normal carriers and wiped them up, and so we've seen that a few times. But super wise, the only supers that I can think of that I've seen from Frat are just the Ratters. Like, and we bubble them or whatever and kill them or whatever. But they've never super escalated. But as Silver said, what's interesting is, right, if you look on the map, right, there are systems that don't have Sinojammers, and if you draw a circle, if they drop caps anywhere within 1 mid from there, we'll drop them, right, and we'll escalate until there's no escalation left. And so I think that sort of mutual assured destruction kind of keeps it at bay. But yeah.
Fair enough. We should shift our eyes a bit towards the other conflict that's happening on the opposite side of the map, up towards the north in Tribute. So previously, this conflict between that we were discussing between Winterco and Legacy is down in the Tenerifis, Imensi, and Detroit area. But if we look at the universe map further up, essentially right on the opposite side, in Tribute, there's been an invasion by the Imperium of what used to be the home of mostly Northern Coalition, but also a few systems belonging to Pandemic Legion. And that had mostly been expected to be a steamroll. When it was first announced, a lot of or actually before it was announced that the Imperium was deploying, we saw a lot of structures being pulled up and see deploying back deeper into their space or even into low-sec and unanchoring some structures. And then an announcement came. The way I've heard it phrased most widely is that it is the intention of the Imperium to glass Tribute. to kill all the structures, kill all the infrastructure, so to speak, and to attempt to set back the military-industrial complex of the North, set it back by a few months, and have some fun along the way. So that's certainly what they've been trying to do, and the reason I bring it up is because we actually had a fantastic post by Tuzzy, who is a GSOL member, if I recall correctly, of the Imperium, and he went through and tracked sort of everything that they know for sure that has been destroyed in the North, including some estimates on how much was destroyed in terms of SOP upgrades, as well as how much was destroyed in terms of unanchored structures and their rigs, and made a fantastic little table that just warms my little spreadsheet-loving heart, and it's on Reddit. You can go and check it out. I'm genuinely amazed by the amount of effort that went into this post. And the final tally, which is I believe it is a lowball estimate of the minimum that they can guarantee has been killed, is around 1 trillion ISK. So that is how much has been lost in the North in tribute as a result of this deployment by the Imperium. Of course, as one would expect, very quickly, the North decided to quip back by pointing to the number of Rorqual and Super losses that has been happening in Delve, Fountain, and Corius since the deployment has happened, and so there's been, of course, a multitude of bickering on various forums about who has actually killed more and whether crabs dying versus citadels dying, one is more valuable than the other. We're not going to have that conversation here. We're just going to look at the shiny kill mills and enjoy the fighting from the sideline. Any other comments on the Northern War?
Well, the one thing is MTAC-0 Keepstar has been reinforced, right? And I think that's out in the next day or two. I don't know if someone from chat
11th.
knows offhand the timing. When is it?
11th of this month, I believe, is the final timer.
Okay. So that, that's a big Keepstar, it's also, strategically, it's one jump out of Jita. It's one jump out of Jita. And I mean, the Goon, sort of Keepstar ladder is already above Jita, right? So they have a Keepstar, pit stops for their supers all the way above Jita now. And, clearing out this area, I mean, and I've said this a couple of times, the North are going to have to deal with this in some way. I mean, they can, crouch down in the cellar and wait for the storm to pass and come out and take care of it, but they're going to have to deal with it in some manner. But MTAC-0 is a big, that's the PL capital. That's a big Keepstar, so we're going to be looking for that, and that's super interesting. I'm very, I don't know, man. I'm like all these really big structures. I'm always drawn to Keepstars dying and that kind of stuff because it's good stuff.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with the MTAC-0. Go ahead.
No, I find it amusing that you bring that up. I mean, if I give some unbiased opinion, I have to admit that the Goons getting involved in this war with Pandemic Legion up there in NC Dot has made the war in the south a little bit easier. Credit you where credit's due, because Pandemic Horde, NC Dot, etc. was forming up with up to 400 guys, adding to the frat body down there defending. And now in the recent weeks that I've been flying with both Legacy and Fire Coalition, I have drastically, the numbers have drastically reduced from those guys because they're now basically being caught up north. And then the other funny thing, might be a little bit of a sensitive topic, but I was actually up at the Keepstar of Purple Helmet Warriors, and that was quite an interesting event that unfolded there, which I think also somehow affected the war in the south a little bit with the attention that Test got from Init because of what happened there. Don't know if this was discussed previously. I'm sure you did.
Ron, you were telling me a little bit something about that on the show earlier, or before we started recording the show, about the various hectic nature of crabbing life in Legacy Coalition nowadays.
Yeah, it's funny because just, looking at the kind of battle reports that I've kept, in the past 5 days, right? So, but first, a shout out to Init, right? So, In it, highly skilled guys, good guys, and when they come, they have a tight comp, they have a great strategy, and it's a lot of fun to fight them because when the fight is over, you can, I always record them, right? And you can record it and see where errors were. And, it's like friendly. You know what I mean? There's no like vitriolic sort of nature to it. So, and it has hit us a couple of times, once really well. And then a shout out to Goldilocks, a friendly, a friendly, it was a boson incident. Let's just call it that. And then Bombers Bar is back. So now we have Cloaky Campers. So Bombers Bar's hit us 3, 4, maybe 5 times this week. And they're teaming up with Frat, and hitting, and Elo's come in with the Munins. Pandemic Horde has been hitting every other day to every day. Not necessarily us, but our blues, also in Legacy, and hitting Rorquals and things like that. So it's been very exciting for the Defense Fleet and for everyone down in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I mean, it's every day, every couple of hours, something's popping off, literally, for weeks.
You even had a little bit of AWOXing going on. I think it was a total of 3 supers have died. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, it's very sad to announce that the first test supers have died this month. And but they died to a stronger force, which is test. But so the first 2 were bots, and Dran and all of them just kind of went through it. These guys were bots, plain and simple, and so both of them were AWOXed and blacklisted. And then the other guy, so I don't want to say like any of the kind of trigger words about what he was doing, because I don't know. But I do know that what he was doing is against the Alliance policy. So no matter what the end result that he was doing is, he was still, not, doesn't belong here. So we AWOXed him, and I'm on that kill mail, by the way. We AWOXed him and blacklisted him.
Fair enough. So the oh, I see your nicks down there on Ron, the character that you are very proud of, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. There's Ron and his nicks. Yeah.
I was gonna make a joke about the Perimeter Police Department, and that has just gone out of my head. So let's move on. Fonsui has joined us.
Dude,
he is on the show.
all of those
we're not
Nixes had the
up.
police skins. All those Nixes had the police skins, by the way.
That is epic. So welcome, Fonsui. We've had you on the Sunday show. Was it a week and a half ago now, I suppose, when the Invasion Pack was just coming out, and we were talking a bit about what to expect with the new Invasion content. And at that time, we really didn't know anything. It was a big mystery. Invasion stuff was kind of sort of halfway on CC, but there was no hard evidence, nothing that you could go out and fly and try yourself, so to speak. But now Invasions has been out for a little over a week and a half. So walk us through what sort of content is out there to do right now with the Triglavian invasions in HiSec.
So they have, as you said, they were remarkably tight-lipped about this content early on. All the detail that we've got has essentially been from Hobo Leaks, prior to the release. And even now we're relying a lot on things like that. Since we saw the initial implementation of the Invasion patch and the expansion and the content that came with it, there has been one change, and that was this Tuesday. It was Tuesday morning, or I'm sorry, maybe Wednesday morning, the following morning, that's right, yesterday morning, when we started seeing the first sites appearing. Until now, all that had been seen were some of the scout fleets and Zoria fleets, with the named, the named Zoria Leshax or whatnot. And those had the probability of dropping loot that you didn't get from the others. But now we're starting to see these conduit sites, and they're actual sites that when you warp to, you see them on your probe scanner as anomalies. You don't have to scan them down. You don't have to probe them down. You don't have to anything. No descan needed. They're just going to show up. And you go there. There's a rift. You get 3 waves of very, very easy Triglavian rats. This is recommended 1 to 2 players. After the 3 waves are done, the site becomes a sealed conduit. It appears in your overview then as a warpable beacon, and it's now a mining site, and you get nothing but regular belt rats. So because this is a recommended 1 to 2 player activity, the rewards are reduced when you kind of blob it and you just throw a whole bunch of players at it, as it should be. It's overfarmed right now. The only reason it's so wildly popular is because it's all there is. It's brand new, and everybody wants a piece. So what we have found is, first and foremost, we're getting LP now. That's the biggest change. We're getting LP. And it looks from this image, I believe this image is via Ashtaroth. It could be somebody else, but I believe that this one's his. You could see that there's one site that paid 107 and one site that paid 1,000. So what it appears to be is that when you get 59 or more active participants, then the payout is about 100 apiece. And when you get 1 or 2 active participants, the payout is about 1,000 apiece. So the more people show up, the less each individual person gets. We expect the reward to scale with larger sites.
Question: What LP is that?
So that is DEDLP. We also
okay.
Could you bring up the screenshot of the new LP store that was up just a moment ago? The rewards are skins. So there's special skins for the new Triglavian ships. Then there's the Singularity Storm skins. Then there's the Triglavian Twilight skins for our standard, Empire ships. A number of those. That's the vanity items that you get from this. The non-vanity items that come from this are the data cores, which are required for the research and production of the Tech 2 ships, and the books, the skill books for the research and production of the Tech 2 ships as well, which are over at the top. I believe those are 40,000 and 30,000 loyalty points respectively, and 40 million and 30 million. So those are going to be the most important things to get the data cores. The books you're going to need once per tune that you want to do this research. The data cores are consumable. The more ships you want, the more blueprints you want, the more data cores you're going to need. So the skins are like, yeah, there's always more players wanting skins. The books, yeah, there's always more players wanting books. But the data cores are expendable. We're blowing them up. We're actively destroying that item. So that's going to be really the core of the LP value for this content. And
so
we're
what is the
that,
LP valued at right around now? Is it worth running these sites?
It is. I'm going to personally say it's not worth running these sites if you're trying to get ISK. That's not to say you're not going to make anything, and it's not going to say you're not going to make a lot. You may get lucky, you may get unlucky. It happens. I would not say that this should interrupt your regular program disc making. Like, if you have a way to make your money, then go ahead and make your money. If you want to try out the new fun content and want to go to the water park where everyone else is peeing in the pool too, then go for it. We are not yet into phase 2. We are not yet into phase 2 of the Triglavian invasions. Triglavian invasions are intended to be cyclical, just like Sancha's Nation incursions. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. That progression from phase 1, phase 2 to phase 3, and then despawning and respawning in somewhere new can be accelerated by player activity. As we engage with the invasion, as we kill the rats, we don't know specifically what the triggers are, but as we engage with the invasion, we progress it from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 faster than it would if we left it alone. The results are the same. It disappears, and then it reappears somewhere else as a brand new one. We have not yet seen phase 2. We are still in phase 1. So all bets are off. We know nothing of the value of these items. All the values that we're seeing are 100% volatile. They're based on novelty. They're based on exclusivity. They're based on rarity. They're based on imbalance. So I would draw absolutely no conclusions at this point in time. Just engage with the content if you like it, or if you're absolutely thirsty for Nikki Tirsa.
So you said once you run the sites, it basically becomes a mining site. Those rocks on the screen
Correct.
there are mineable.
Correct. So
What are
what
they?
you
They're
get out of
like export
those,
right now, right?
yeah. So it's a special ore. The minor conduits. There are 3 types of new ores that contain existing minerals when you process them. So the ore that is found there is kind of low grade. It's the first of 3. It gets better. Your mining cycle time is reduced, however, so you mine a lot faster. So you're able to collect the stuff really quick. You can't compress it, so you better bring a gigantic cargo storage. But it's basically high-sec mining that has a whole bunch of stuff. Now, what you're going to find in other, if I actually didn't include that image in this package, and I should have, but the higher grade ores that you mine contain other minerals. I believe the highest one contains morphite, and this may be seen in high-sec. We're not sure
Yeah.
if it's going. We're not sure if it's going to yet, but
So
morphite and
that
high sec is like a thing.
so that's like a thing that people are a little bit mad about. Not to go too far down the mining pipeline, but I think it is real important that there's special effects in the field, right? You said the cycle time, but the later versions of this are going to offer ore that typically isn't found anywhere else but nullsec, right?
Correct.
Or at least not high sec.
Yeah.
So you're going to be able to scoop up very valuable stuff at a high rate in high sec.
It's possible that the ore that level of ore won't spawn in the high sec invaded systems. We don't know yet.
Yeah,
all
we don't
all
know.
bets are off, and it may not. It may initially, and then they may change that if enough people complain. I mean, like, there's absolutely no way to tell. I wouldn't stress over it one way or the other. I'm just enjoying the content as it happens. I'm watching, like, all the very rich people buy the ships and donate them to streamers so we could get them, see them flown on stream, which is awesome. Like, there's a couple of guys who've been throwing these new ships at the streamers, and everybody gets to see it, and it's really cool to see. And it's cool because they're so rare and they're so expensive and they're so hard to get, and yet they're making it out, and to where everybody can see them. I've seen Jebby flying them, I've seen Torvald flying them, and Ash has one. It's like,
For the
they're getting out
record,
there.
I have not gotten one. So for the record, like, I haven't gotten one. That's FYI.
just in case anyone was curious. Just in case anyone was curious. But yeah, like, Jebby did the first Draugr stream, and the first Draugr kills on stream, and the first Draugr loss on stream, or maybe the first Draugr loss ever. And Torvald did a Nurgle, and Torvald got an Iki Tirsa on Iki Tirsa Abyss PvP fight, and it was incredible. It was inspiring to see, and he won. And then he popped out, and as soon as he pops out back into K-Space, he got NATO'd in his winning Iki Tirsa.
Yeah, he got ganked, I think it is, by Stream Sniper. Like, that's awesome. That's so great for that Stream Sniper.
And of course,
that's great.
It's Torvald, so he laughs it off because, like,
he handled that like a boss. Like,
yeah,
he handled that like a
that's
boss.
what happens.
Like,
that thing is immortalized now. That thing is a ship is never the story is never told until it shows up on Zekill. Like, that's the way you immortalize a vessel. Get it on this webpage.
But just going back to the mining, so Suetonia was really interesting. So Suetonia was running the numbers, and he said it was like a maxed out Hulk, right? Could mine the equivalent of a T1 Rorqual. Now, obviously, there aren't going to be rocks as that big, right? So you're going to have a lot more movement, so you're not going to get as much yield. But the numbers wise, right, cycle time and all that. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to this, right? I mean, it's really, really well done. Probably one of the best things CCP's done. It's great for streamers. So people are streaming the heck out of this stuff. Viewership is way up. I mean, look at Ash's stream. He had he was touching like 100 people before.
Oh, we got up to 200. It was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, for PvE content, that's really high.
Yeah,
and then you got
really
the stuff that's going to affect the market. And I think that mining is definitely going to impact the market somehow. Then you have this new LP store, which the fact that there's an LP store selling trig specific stuff leads me to believe there'll be more things in there, like maybe a faction gun you could buy.
I certainly hope they add more stuff to it, because, like,
definitely
as I said, it's only use, like, ongoing. That's like a steady source of, like, this is what you do with your LP after you got the other stuff. It's like, it's one item and it's the data cores. That's it.
Well, I'm assuming that if the CCP is clearly filling this out as a new full-fledged race, right? So you should probably start to see faction items, like, I don't know, faction armor plates, stuff like that you can fill out. Like it's really interesting watching all this.
We have been given now officer guns and faction damage mods, and we don't know what they're from yet. So who knows?
I'm sure they'll wind up in the LP store eventually after we get past like the whatever they're going to release it with. They'll probably maybe level 2.
That's the thing. It's the first cycle through. As not only are we are they releasing phase 1 gated, like within the phase. Not only that, but we can't even necessarily draw any conclusions from the first full cycle through of an invasion, because it's like, well, that was just the first one. Maybe that's how they did it for release. And we have to wait until we see this thing cycle twice before we can say, okay, this is the beginning, this is the middle, this is the end, this is what happens, this is how you min-max it. And I'm really, truly hoping that the content escalates to the point where it is the difficulty level, or maybe not difficulty level, but just like requires the planning and cohesion of incursions, but on a 10-player scale and on a 5-player scale, on a 15-player scale, because I think that will bring excellent content to a much more reachable audience.
Yeah, this is just flush out the old in with the new, right? I hope they just wipe Sancha incursions out of the game, and this will be the new thing.
Oh, whoa, dog! Whoa, let's not get crazy.
I'm getting crazy, Ron. No more getting into your logi and watching Netflix for 6 hours while you're freaking repping. Come on, man. Do something with your time.
That Ash mentioned and that I've thought of as well, and I think is very interesting. We know, so the Triglavians have been positioned as having a particular grudge against the Sanchez nation since the start. They call them corrupted foreign Narodnia, stuff like that. They're always dissing them and stuff and they're very serious about this. I would like to see an invasion and an incursion spawn in the same system, and I want to see the rats fight. And B, it's entirely possible that, as you said, this is out with the old and in with the new. It's possible they're going to RP their way through the Triglavians, flushing out Sancha.
Yep.
Have we seen
tinfoil?
The Triglavian invasions fight with drifters, like the roaming drifters? Because I remember at a CCP presentation.
Only in videos.
Right on.
Yeah, I mean, I think
that's a CCP presentation. They said like there was some sort of battle that happened between the new AI that they developed for the Diamond Rats, which they then implemented for the Drifters. And so somewhere in some random high-sec system, some drifter shot some diamond rat, and there was just this massive battle that happened between these two just complete NPC fleets that no player ever saw. They only found it when they were just looking through the logs to find out what happened.
Wow.
I'm wondering if this has happened for the Triglavians.
I would love to see that happen, and like just as the Triglavians are like attacking our structures and and potentially attacking player structures that are unattended, I think, or even going in and, as you said, the diamond rats will do that, and diamond rats will mine your belts and stuff. I think that the two pieces of content eliminating each other is the same kind of concept. It's you guys, if you want this content, come get it, because they're gonna wipe each other out, and like get involved. It's like it's a really good hook. I want to see this happen. I don't know if it will, but I'd be very interested to see that.
Indeed.
I just hope it just keeps scaling. Like not as much like it becomes like this huge incursion thing where you have to have like these huge big teams, but just it just becomes harder. Like if you think of it like a dungeon or something, like
it's a joke right now.
The deeper you go down, like it needs to get much harder. Like I want to like lose ships. I want just to get massacred. So hopefully
do we even have access to the higher level fleets?
No, like all we've seen is scout fleets, couple of Zoria rats, and the minor conduits. We haven't even seen a major conduit yet, and we certainly haven't seen a World Arc proving ground. I have particular concerns about the World Arc proving grounds as a signaleer, as a member of Signal Cartel. The fact that it has in the name proving ground is very troubling to me, because it's possible that it may be specifically inviting PvP. Because proving ground is what the Abyss PvP is currently called. So it could mean that we're proving ourselves against the Triglavians. It could mean that we're doing that and it's maybe other players will show up. But if it comes down to a situation where we are locked in a room and cannot leave until someone dies, that is an unacceptable situation for a signalier. That is.
Can you just have one of your Signal Cartel members go in and self-destruct their ship?
This was discussed when Abyss PvP was implemented. We said, well, what if we just go in, we want to do the proving conduits, we want to do the proving grounds. We don't want to fight. We just want to hopefully, because if you get 5 minutes in there alone, then the cache pops open and you don't get a fight. You just get loot. And someone has 5 minutes to challenge you. So we said, what if we go in there and just plan to self-destruct if someone challenges us? And the answer was, don't go into a proving grounds.
Well, the Trigs wouldn't that, man. The Trigs want you to fight. They don't want you to go in there and be like, hey, I got the loot. Oh, somebody popped.
So it is entirely possible that if this is a two fleets enter, one fleet leave situation, that we may not be able to participate.
For you.
So
we'll you can't amend the credo in the light of
credo isn't. The credo cannot be amended because it is not a law and it is not a rule. It is. You should go around making Signal Cartel look good and making everyone like us, and that's literally what it means.
I think that's awesome
I love
for you guys. I think that's great. I will sacrifice dinos, as many dinos as it takes, and we will go in by ourselves, and we'll draw straws and we'll self-destruct or we'll kill each other, whatever it takes. Dinos are down. So for the record,
I like the shirt, by the way, Ron. It's really classy.
You know how many meetings I've worn this to, and people just kind of like look at it, but there's no words on it, right? So, yeah. Oh, and by the way, Artemis, so for everyone listening, if you have Twitch Prime and it is connected, if you have Amazon Prime and it's connected to your Twitch account, you'll see people in chat with the little blue crown. So they already have it. So if you go up at the top right, click, you get like a little claim now, and you can get some Synesis and some other little things. It's all free.
Skill points too.
I finished.
You get a bit of skill points.
There were like 3 of us talking right there. Fun sweet.
No. Pointless. Go ahead, please.
All right, fantastic. Ron, go.
I wasn't talking, but obviously I'll always talk if you need me to.
I just wanted to mention that among the gifts you get are skill points. I think it's like 124,000, 125,000, which people are like, what? But hey, skill points are skill points, man, and they're free.
It's a lot. That's like an injector's worth of skill points, by the way. For even if you're over 80 mil, so go get your skill points. You probably need them. Trust me.
And you also get, I think it's 8 days of Omega training time, if I recall.
All right, I forgot about that.
15 days. 15 days of Omega.
Oh, wow. And you get a Synesis and a nice purple skin for it. Fonsui, out of curiosity, can the Synesis run the scout sites if you have like a fleet support?
It would
or the minor conduits, right?
It would take some doing to get a destroyer to be effective in those sites. I would take a cruiser or larger, but they are rather easy. When they say that it's recommended 1 to 2 players, it's like one well-equipped player. And when I say well-equipped, I mean like maybe 200 mil, something 300 mil, not anything more than that. Major conduits, I'm hoping it doesn't mean 5 to 6 pilots of the same equipment level. I'm hoping it means 5 to 6 pilots of a higher equipment level. But that remains to be seen.
Fair enough. There's definitely some content to go on and explore if you're curious about it now, or at least to get your appetites ready and waiting for what should be to come in the future when we go into stage 2. And you said there was a stage 3 of this invasion thing, or just 2 stages?
There are 3 phases of each invasion each invasion will progress from phase 1 to 2 to 3 and then go away, and our interaction with it will affect the rate at which that happens, and I guess how much we get out of it eventually. And then it just moves to somewhere else. It's very, very similar to spawning.
Awesome. Well, we can look forward to that in the future. For right now, definitely if you have Amazon Prime and it is connected to your Twitch account, you can then connect that to your EVE Online account. It won't share any information, like you're not going to get doxxed, your EVE account isn't going to get linked to Amazon or Twitch in some way that's going to break OPSEC for you. It's just you get free stuff on that character. So there you go. Make sure you grab it if you have all of those three things connected together, or get them connected so that you can get it. And that's something that you should be doing right now, because the event doesn't last long, if I recall correctly. So definitely make sure you snag that before it's gone. Let's hop into shoutouts. I want to give a quick shout out to our guest tonight, Burn Time. Unfortunately, he had to leave early because it is literally 3 a.m. at the start of showtime for us. So a big shout out to him for staying up late in order to give us all that info on the background of his group, the things that we missed about the conflict in Scalding Pass due to what is very different conflicts in very different time zones between US and EUTZ. So shout out to him for doing that for us. Fonsui, you got a shout out for us?
Sorry, you cut out there for a moment.
Do you have a shout out for us, Fonsui?
Oh, as far as anything I want to talk about.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Well, I mean, I'll hopefully be streaming more regularly on my own channel going forward. I'm aiming at twice a week. We're going to be starting that up pretty soon.
And what channel is that?
That is just I'll say hi in chat. There, that's me. So go ahead and follow me. And I focus a lot on Abyss content. I'm looking to diversify a little. But really, my claim to fame, and I'm kind of sticking to what I'm good at, is getting people with their, to get their feet wet in Abyss and get started without being scared of it, realizing what you can learn and what you can enjoy in there. It'll make you a better pilot. It'll make you a richer pilot. And it's really, if you can stomach the PvE, I know a lot of people can't, but if you can handle killing rats, then these are some rats you want to kill, and I can help you do it.
Fair enough. How about you, Ron? Got shout outs for us today?
I was laughing when he was like diversified. I'm like, diversified to tier 3? Diversified.
Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, dude, he's the master when it comes to that abyssal stuff. My shout out would be to all those dinosaurs out there that are, just struggling against the man, sitting in their little capital ships and doing their thing. Keep it up, guys. Nice job.
And Silver?
I'll give it Fed Up. Shout out to Fed Up. We've gone through a bit of a transition here, but we have a clear direction now. Dropping Militia. We are nullsec now. I wish Ader well. And keep it up, guys. You're doing a good job.
All right. Well, that'll do it for Talking in Stations Season 2, Episode 18. So you have a new show on this Sunday, 1600 UTC, and of course, we'll be back again next Thursday at 0100 Eve time.